Let's now look at cosecant and secant. Here's my cosecant graph. And let's first look at what happens when I reflect cosecant vertically. So all of my parabolas switch spots, because we're reflecting them across this x-axis. Okay. Now what happens when I reflect across the y-axis? Well, this parabola flips over to this side. This parabola gets flipped over to this side. And I actually get the same graph as the blue. Thus, for cosecant, cosecant of negative x equals negative cosecant of x. Let's look at secant. Let's first flip cosecant, or let's flip cosecant across the x-axis. All my parabolas switch spots. But now what happens when I reflect across the y-axis? I see that this red parabola gets flipped onto itself. These two parabolas switch spots. And there's another parabola over here that switches spots with this far right parabola. Thus, secant and secant of negative x are the same. So secant of negative x equals just secant of x. So notice the pattern here. Sine and cosecant, which are automatically paired up as reciprocals of one another. Sine of negative x is negative sine x, and cosecant of negative x is negative cosecant x. Whereas cosine and secant, which are paired up as reciprocals of another, equal the positive version of their forms. Alright, last one for us to check out is tangent and cotangent. Here I have tangent x, and let's see what happens when I reflect across the x-axis. I take negative tan x. Well, all of my parabolas get flipped. Or not parabolas, sorry, my little S things. Because the top part gets flipped down and the bottom part gets flipped up. Let's see what happens when I reflect across the y-axis. Tan of negative x. I see that this right side gets moved left and the left side gets moved right. That this red here is reflected onto the blue over here, and vice versa. Meaning, tan of negative x is equal to negative tan x. Alright, let's check cotangent. Negative cotangent, we're flipping across the x-axis. Gives me this blue. Now let's flip across the y-axis, cotangent of negative x. So this red S here gets flipped across the y-axis onto the blue S here, and vice versa. The second red over here gets reflected onto the second blue, and vice versa. So also for cotangent, we see cotangent of negative x is the same as negative cotangent x. Those are all your even-odd identities. So the ones to be careful about are your cosine and your secant. This middle group right here. Because cosine of negative x and secant of negative x equals positive cosine and secant, respectively.